Now you might think that you want the DJI Mini 4 Pro, however, in this video I want to talk about some of the major differences between the Mini 4 Pro and the Air 3, because both of these drones have a lot of features that are going to appeal to content creators. However, the Mini 4 Pro is smaller, more lightweight, but the Air 3 has two cameras and it's a much more powerful drone. So in this video, I'm going to show you the difference between these two drones and why you might want to skip out on getting the Mini 4 Pro. All right, let's get into it. Now, I think this is a super interesting video because both of these drones are very similar. When you look at them side by side, the specs are super close. However, there are some major differences between these two drones, and they make a big impact in how you're going to film your footage. And the first thing is the lens options. On the Mini 4 Pro, you have one camera. It's a 24mm f1.7. Now, 24mm is a great focal length for a drone. You can get some awesome looking footage. It's nice and wide, and it has everything that you need for getting drone footage. Now, with the Mini 4 Pro, you also have the add-on wide angle lens, and then this gives you an equivalent of a 16mm. So this is even wider, and this gives you a different perspective that's super wide. So if you're flying close to objects or you just want to see more of the horizon, you have a really wide lens on this drone. Now, for the Air 3, you actually have two different cameras on this drone. On one of the cameras, you have a 24mm f1.7, so that's identical to Mini 3 Pro. However, you also have a second camera, which is equivalent to a 70mm f2.8. And so you get the super long telephoto lens, which is going to give you really unique footage when you're out flying. Having a long lens on a drone used to only be something that you would find on big, heavy drones, but now it's available in the Air 3, which is a super compact and portable drone. And having a long lens is going to make your footage just look that much more professional, because shooting on a long lens gives you that perspective that you really see in movies for helicopter and drone shots. There's a ton of parallax with the background moving at a different speed than the foreground, and also it just isolates your subject that much better. And when you're shooting big landscapes, it compresses the background so that you have more layers and it has more of this visual interest than a big wide lens. So overall, having that longer lens is a huge advantage over the Mini 4 Pro. Also, a small thing is that if you use ND filters, Air 3, you could have an ND filter on both of your cameras and be able to get the proper motion blur for the scene that you're flying. Whereas when you're working with the Mini 4 Pro, you can only use an ND filter or the wide lens. You can't use the 16mm wide lens with an ND filter on top of it. Now, the second reason you should reconsider the Mini 4 Pro is wind resistance. So even though the Air 3 is a small drone, it's still heavier than the Mini 4 Pro, and it does hold up to wind much better. So if you're in any sort of environment where there is a breeze hitting your drone, the Mini 4 Pro is going to be more prone to bouncing around and having a little bit more shaky footage. When you're flying in heavy winds with the Mini series, you'll see bumps and movements in your footage. Whereas the Air 3, just because it's heavier and a little bit bigger, it's going to have a better wind resistance. So you're going to be able to have a little bit more stable footage, especially when you're flying at like mountaintops or over cliffs where there's an updraft coming up and hitting your drone as you're flying over it. Now, another reason that the Air 3 is better than the Mini 4 Pro is the speed at which the drone climbs into the air and descends towards the ground. So on the Air 3, it's double that of the Mini 4 Pro. And this is twofold. So first, you could take off fast and get to the position that you want to start shooting from much quicker. Also, if you're doing shots where you're climbing or descending, you're going to be able to create more movement with these shots. And so if you're doing something like going up a building or coming up over a hill, you'll be able to do this at a much faster pace, which creates more dynamic footage than you would be able to do with the Mini 4 Pro. Now, a small thing, but something that could become a problem in the field is how you put the propellers on and off both of these drones. So on the Mini 4 Pro, your propellers come off with a little screw. So you always have to be carrying a screwdriver with you to be able to take your propellers on and off. So if you're out in the field and you accidentally break one of your propellers, well, you got to make sure to always have this screwdriver with you. And if you forget it or you lose it, well, you're not going to be able to change out your propellers. Whereas on the Air 3, you just push down and rotate and the propellers pop off. So you don't have to bring anything additional to be able to take these propellers on and off when you need to change them. Now, the next thing is speed. Both of these drones can fly pretty fast. However, the Air 3 is faster than the Mini 4 Pro. And so this comes into play when you want to get to your location to get a shot, or you just want to create more motion in your footage. So if you're flying low to the ground and fast, the Air 3 is going to feel a lot faster than the Mini 4 Pro. Overall, between these two drones, the Air 3 is faster than the Mini 4 Pro, and so you could use that to your advantage to create interesting shots at taking advantage of the speed of this drone, versus the Mini 4 Pro is going to be a little bit limited in terms of how fast it can go. Now, the next thing is the battery. So on the Mini 4 Pro, you have two battery options. The smaller battery, which keeps it under 250 grams, only allows you to fly for 34 minutes. And the bigger battery that makes the drone a little bit heavier allows the drone to fly for 45 minutes. Now on the Air 3, there's only one style of battery, and that battery allows you to fly for 46 minutes. So it's really not that big of a difference unless you're using the smaller battery, which is going to significantly decrease your flight time when you're out filming. Now the next big difference between these two drones is the max takeoff altitude. So on the Mini 4 Pro, with the smaller battery, which makes it a little lighter, the highest that you could take off from is 4,000 meters. Whereas on the Air 3, you could take off at 6,000 meters. And it's going to become more of an issue if you're someone who's taking these drones into the mountains. And 4,000 meters is still really high up there. So the reality is the Mini 4 Pro will work in most situations. But if you are someone who is in higher altitudes, the Mini 4 Pro might have more issues flying at these higher altitudes, whereas the Air 3 is going to be able to handle these higher altitudes, especially when you're getting way up there to the tallest peaks. Now, the next big thing is the internal storage between these two drones. Both of them have a very small internal storage. However, the Air 3 has 8 gigabytes, and that gives you enough to get a few shots if you forget a memory card or if your memory card fills up. Whereas on the Mini 4 Pro, the internal memory is only 2 gigabytes. That's tiny. It's very much like grab a few shots or a few photos, but you're going to fill up 2 gigabytes fast. So you basically always have to use a micro SD card when you're flying with the Mini 4 Pro. It'd be great if they could put like 32 gigs, 64, or 128 in these drones, because 8 gigabytes and 2 gigabytes is not enough to really shoot very much when you're out filming. But 8 will definitely give you a lot more footage than the 2 will. All right, with all that said, there are definitely some reasons why you would want to get the Mini 4 Pro over the Air 3. And the first is the size and the weight. So the Mini 4 Pro is tiny and it could fit into your backpack much easier. Combine that with the size of the batteries and you have a much smaller footprint than the Air 3, which is going to take up more space, and it's also going to be heavier. So if you are putting a bunch of gear in your backpack, it is going to be more ideal to take the Mini 4 Pro with you versus the Air 3. And also with that weight limit, depending on where you're at in the world, you might need a drone that's sub 250 grams. And in that case, the Mini 4 Pro is definitely the drone that you're going to want. However, if you're not limited by the weight restriction, then it really comes down to what you're doing with the drone and if the extra weight and size is going to make things a little bit harder, especially if you're traveling or you're hiking or you're just doing something where you don't want to take as much gear with you. Personally, when I'm traveling, the Mini 4 Pro makes a lot more sense than taking the Air 3. However, if I'm going in my Jeep or I'm going hiking with a little bit bigger backpack, then the Air 3 makes more sense for me because I can get much more cinematic looking footage with that 70mm lens. You really kind of have to weigh the pros and cons of each. And for me, I want that 70mm when I'm out flying. However, there are times where it just makes more sense to have a smaller footprint and have less gear with me. Now, another big reason why you might pick the Mini 4 Pro over the Air 3 is the vertical shooting. So on the Mini 4 Pro, you do true vertical shooting where the camera actually rotates. Whereas on the Air 3, it just punches in a cropped vertical frame. So you could get full 4K in the Mini 4 Pro, whereas the Air 3, you get 2.7K resolution and it's cropped in versus rotating and getting the full width of the sensor. And another big factor of why you might choose the Mini 4 Pro over the Air 3 is the price. So just the drone itself, the Mini 4 Pro is $759, whereas the Air 3 is $1,099. So it's a pretty big difference depending on how much you want to spend on a drone. And the reality is you're not just buying a drone, you're going to want the Fly More kit because it's going to give you multiple batteries and it's going to give you the controller with the screen, which makes a lot more sense. And so the Fly More kit for the Mini 4 Pro is $1159, whereas the Fly More kit for the Air 3 is $1,549. So it's $400 more to get the Air 3 over the Mini 4 Pro. And that could be the deciding factor of which drone you want to get into, especially if you're new to flying and this is your first drone. Personally, I think both systems are great, and I think you can't go wrong with either. Just depends on which features appeal more to you. And if you're new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. On this channel, I teach you how to make better videos, especially if you're someone who's into making outdoor and adventure style videos. And if you're trying to grow a YouTube channel, make sure you head over to thecreatorfilmschool.com. That teaches you everything that I've learned to growing a YouTube channel. And so if you're going to get either one of these drones, well, I've created a complete beginner's guide for both of them. And you could check either one of those out right here, which gives you a full breakdown of all of the features and everything that you can do with these drones. Also, if you want to see how you can get cinematic footage with the Air 3, check out this video. It goes through a bunch of different tips on how you can get better looking footage using this 70mm lens. I'll see you on one of the videos.